Hi everyone, my name is Kathy Gatley. I'm the Ranger in Charge at Mon Repos Conservation Park. Here on the park we have the Mon Repos Turtle Centre, and the nesting beach is a very important nesting beach for marine turtles, particularly the endangered loggerhead turtle.
My first question is, Kathleen, what does a typical day look like for you as a ranger at the Mon Repos Turtle Center?
Yeah, so a typical day as a ranger here at Mon Repos. So we work for the Queensland Parks and Wildlife Service. So our job is to protect and conserve the protected area of Mon Repos Conservation Park and all the species that use the park. So we do lots of different things. Every day is pretty different. And I think that's one of the interesting things about being a ranger is that you never quite know what's going to pop up on your day. So we might be here at the Turtle Centre, and we might be doing office work or out in the field doing weed removal, or down on the beach looking at the dunes to make sure that we've got good nesting habitat for the upcoming season. And then we might get a call to go out to marine animal stranding somewhere along our coastline. So yeah, it's really variety. At the Turtle Centre, we see lots of visitors coming through to learn about turtles, and we also have a lot of school groups that visit us. So we do ranger guided sessions with schools and other interest groups, and also guided walks in the park. So yes, we're all about turtle conservation and education here at Mon Repos Turtle Centre.
Can you tell us a little bit about the conservation efforts in which you are involved?
Yes, so working with marine turtles, so they're a threatened species, and the loggerhead turtle is an endangered species. Mon Repos, where I work, supports around about 50% of nesting for the whole South Pacific area for loggerhead turtles coming ashore to lay their eggs. So that makes our area here a really vitally important nesting beach to maintain the species for the future. So we undertake a lot of research, and while we're in nesting season, we're recording which turtles are coming ashore. We might be relocating their eggs to a safer spot in the dunes, and we do that because they are a critically endangered species. So we want to try to get as many hatchlings out into the ocean as possible. So by relocating the eggs, if a turtle lays a bit too low down on the beach, then we move them up to a safe spot where they're nice and protected from the incoming tides, and that means we're getting as many hatchlings out into the ocean as possible. So that's one thing that we do here, which is really important. Also just recording how many turtles are coming ashore to lay in the nesting season, so that gives us an idea of the overall population that we're seeing. Then we do a lot of education. So the education is all about connecting people to marine turtles and the marine environment broadly. So once people get those connections, then they obviously, well, usually they seem to care more about that resource, and that helps to have that more community feel, and people wanting to do the right things to help to look after marine turtles and the ocean. Along with that, we do things such as the Cut the Glow to Help Turtles Go program. And the Cut the Glow program is something we began back in 2009, where we had a clutch of hatchlings come out of the dunes, and rather than come out and then head straight towards the ocean, they came out. They saw the artificial glow down the southern end of the beach, and they all went that way. So they got disoriented by the glow from our local community, and so they wasted precious energy by going the wrong way along the beach. So the Cut the Glow program is all about working with our schools and our community and any visitors to the area to remind people that turtle season is here, and what they can do to make sure they keep their lights turned off or turned down during the season. So that is a really big conservation effort that we put in, because marine nesting and hatching turtles really need dark beaches to be successful. And then the only other thing was we do a junior turtle ranger program. So the schools that we have that work with us on the Cut the Glow program, we then have selected students come and do a junior ranger program with us, and they come down onto the beach and get some hands-on work around nesting and hatching turtles.
Oh, that's amazing. And my next question, actually, it's based on what you just explained to us. Actually, my next two questions, in fact. So from January to December, how does the turtle calendar work in terms of nestling and migration?
Sure. So our turtle season, usually we see our first nesting turtles mid to late October. So for turtles to be nesting then, they're starting migrating and courtship areas prior to that. So usually sort of September time, we'll see turtles migrating from their feeding grounds. They go through a courtship area, so both males and females migrate, find courtship, mate with a number of different individuals for our female turtles, and then they swim through to their nesting beaches. So we see our first nesting turtles coming ashore in that October period, and then November is when we start to see turtles every night. So we get our nesting turtles. Like any breeding season, it starts off slowly. So you might get a number of individuals and then it builds to a peak. For us along our Wungara coast, we see that main peak for nesting the last 2 weeks of December. So Christmas time is the peak for our turtles coming ashore to nest. And then we usually see our first hatchlings. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks for the hatchlings to emerge. So we usually see those hatchlings coming out around New Year's Eve. And once again, the hatchlings start off slowly and then build to a peak in February. And we just had our last clutch emerge the other week, which was, what are we in now? In May. So we had a few
June,
late
actually.
turtles.
We are in June now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, we've had sometimes we get a couple of nesters doing their last clutches late, and then the hatchlings emerge late as well. So usually most of our hatchlings are gone by the mid-April.
Okay. Wow, that's fascinating. And what sort of risks do marine turtles face these days?
Yes, there is a lot of risks and threats for marine turtle. Of course, there's natural predation. So for our big adult turtles or middle-sized turtles, shark is a natural predator for them. A lot of people wonder how a shark could eat a turtle because they have that great carapace to protect them. So big sharks can break through that, and they can also go for the flippers and the head areas as well. So natural predators. But that's something that you have in any natural ecosystem. The main problem for our turtles, for our nesting and hatching turtles, is, as I said earlier, with artificial light glow, is a big problem for them. They go the wrong way. If hatchlings get attracted inland, by the time the sun rises, they don't know which way to go because they're using the natural light horizon at night, which is out over the ocean, to find their way. Microplastics is a big problem for both, well, all marine animals and hatchlings. We're seeing hatchlings that leave our nesting beach. They wash in ashore along the southern beaches, and they have ingested plastics just in that couple of, weeks of leaving from their nesting beach. So that is quite hard to see. Boat strikes is still an issue for marine turtles, so we always encourage people to make sure they go slow in zones that are designated in marine parks, because they're areas where we know they're big feeding grounds for animals such as turtles, dugongs. Habitat loss, and that can be that from artificial light, turtles might look for darker beaches to go and find, and those beaches might not be great beaches for incubating successful nests. And then also just how the quality of the ocean. So that affects food sources for marine animals. So trying to keep our waterways as pristine as we can certainly helps out our marine turtles. climate change in the future, and it's been looked at now as well. So marine turtles, they like warm beaches for nesting, incubating their eggs. But if it gets too hot, then that can stop the eggs from incubating. So this might mean that they change locations, but it's something that's still being looked at the moment. So that's probably some of the main threats for our marine turtles.
And Kathy, you mentioned about the newly born turtles ingesting microplastics in the ocean, I mean, within weeks of life. In terms of the process of ingestion, is there any difference between a newly born turtle and an adult turtle?
No. So yes, we see all turtles with all different sizes can ingest plastics. And yeah, I suppose it just depends on how much they're ingesting, and if they're washing ashore for us, either sick or dead, to see if we can do a necropsy on them to look at the cause of death for those animals. So yeah, it's a problem across all species and all age groups.
Which is really, really unfortunately and sad. And so I understand you face lots of challenges, but also there's the rewarding part of your job. Uh, if you had to describe to us the most rewarding part of your job, and of course, as well, the biggest challenges you face, what would be?
I think probably the most rewarding is I've been working at Mon Repos for a bit over 30 years now. When I started, the loggerhead population was in decline, and the nesting population, if you looked at the graphs, had been on a steady decline for quite a while. And then I think all of the practices, so what we learn on the beach through our research and the feeding ground research as well, that leads to management of the species. And around the year 2000, we actually saw that decline sort of level out, and then we saw some good seasons where numbers increased. So that's really rewarding to think that, relocating nests, getting more hatchlings out there, that's helping to get numbers out there. Things like the introduction of the turtle exclusion devices on commercial fishing vessels stopped getting nesting adults drowned while they were migrating and in the waters near their nesting beaches. So yeah, that's a really positive thing. Last season, in the 2024-25 season, we saw our best loggerhead nesting numbers in over 50 years. So that was a super fun season to see so many turtles ashore. But, that may be because some turtles that could have bred in previous seasons, the food sources mightn't have been there because we'd had some flood events. So they may have just all coincided to come in that one season rather than, wow, look at this, a big burst in the population. Yeah, and I think it's very rewarding to work in a natural environment. So rangers are very lucky in that way, and working hands-on with endangered species and getting to share that with the visitors and the schools that come to visit in season and out of season. It's very rewarding for us here.
And as you well mentioned, I mean, you guys receive lots of visitors, students, teachers, general public. So how do you educate people about the importance of turtle conservation, and what message do you hope they take away?
We do lots of, I suppose, in season, we're down on the beach, we're there with the animals, and we have a ranger or a guide talking about the process and the threats, what people can do to help. So we hope people take away that they could start using reusable materials for the kids in their lunch boxes. Think about what's going into lunch boxes and, using beeswax wraps, anything to stop, just that throwaway thought. challenging people to use, reusable water bottles and not take easy options, and making sure that they have gear in their bags or in their car for when they're out, so that they've got it there on hand and never get caught out. So yes, I think those are some of the messages. We want people just to develop that love for our oceans and a sense of protecting the species. And I think also for people that may not necessarily live near the beach, talking about those connections and how, riverways, waterways all come together and end up down at the ocean. So yeah, just kicking those things in. And then locally, it's all about, I get a lot of parents saying to me that their kids come home and they have to turn off all their lights. So we think that's pretty funny. But it's great to see that kids are really passionate about wanting to help to keep dark beaches for turtles.
That's amazing. And unfortunately, as we are heading towards the end of the interview, I have one final question, and I think it's a very special question, actually. If you would be able to share with us any interesting or unusual turtle-related stories or encounters you have had while working at the center.
There's so many.
Yeah,
Every night is different. Some of my favorite things are you're finding a clutch of hatchlings where you've got the ones that have been doing all the hard digging. They're really tired, so they're asleep, and you can see the sand pulsing as the ones that have been having a bit of a rest lower down and not having to do the hard work are pushing the ones on top. And often you'll get a number of hatchlings and they're all asleep like this, and they get pushed out of the sand. So they're sleeping there, but you can see them, and eventually they'll wake up, and then there's this big flurry of activity down onto the beach. So that's pretty fun. One that I remember from many years ago is I had a nesting loggerhead turtle come ashore. I had a visitor group down there watching her. She did all the usual things, laid her eggs, was up in a great spot. And then when she finished laying, usually the turtle will use their hind flippers to push sand over their eggs, and they spend about 20 minutes disguising the nest area before they head back to the water. Well, this turtle, she decided that she'd have a little nap. So she just closed her eyes and didn't cover in over her eggs and sat there for about 20 minutes having a little nap. And eventually I had to give her a little tickle around the flipper area. And she went, "Oh, that's right. I'm here nesting. I better finish off my job." So she filled in, went back to the water. But I've only ever seen that once in 30 years. So it was always a bit interesting. I thought she must have been tired from all the hard work getting up and down the beach.
Do you name the turtles when you find them, or it's something that does
Yeah,
not exist?
we tag the turtles, the
Ah,
nesting turtles, and that tag is how we recognize them.
mm-hmm.
Some of our turtles that are sponsored turtles and do satellite tracking, then they are ones that often get named. So usually the people that sponsor those turtles can choose the name.
That's amazing. So basically, you mentioned that you tag the turtles, so they return to the ocean. But even when they are in the ocean, you guys can monitor the whole process, their whole journey, everything you can monitor. Is that correct?
Yes, with the satellite track turtles, that's
Mm-hmm.
correct. So the satellite trackers we often pinpoint turtles that we want to see where they live, and it might be older age turtles or turtles that are nesting for the first time in their life. And we'll put a satellite tracker on in between one of their clutches, because each turtle usually lays 4 clutches. They have a 2-week period in between. So we'll put a satellite tracker on its carapace. And then when it goes back out into the ocean, when they come up for a breath, it gives off a signal, and we can follow their migration journeys from back to their feeding or foraging ground. And that's really important information, because these turtles that are surviving, they're obviously living in an area that's pretty safe for them. So it gives us some further information about what may be a good environment for our turtles to live. And then with our tagging program, where we tag them on their front flippers up near their armpit area, If we're doing research out in the foraging grounds, in the feeding areas, then if we capture a turtle that's already tagged, then we can build that history on that turtle. So we know, oh, this turtle's a Mon Repos nester, and now we know that she lives at Moreton Bay.
And you told us that the turtles can be named by their sponsors. What sort of names actually come up usually?
Let me see. We've got a Leone. We've got a Dark and Stormy, and a Burgundy that was named by somebody from Bundaberg Brewed Drinks. Yeah, so a real mixture. We've got a Star. So yeah, there's a few turtles out there. We've got Premier, which is one of our really exciting turtles in that it was a turtle that was one of the first tag turtles to come back. So it was notched as a hatchling on the outer scale of the carapace, which is like a little punch hole on the carapace. And it came back 29 years later as an adult turtle undertaking nesting for the first time. So that's called Premier,
Wow.
that girl. So yeah, some really interesting research, and that's research program was all about understanding how long it took turtles to get to breeding age. And they thought it was about 10 years back in the day. And it wasn't until the turtles started coming back in from the study with the hatchlings that we realized it was quite much later, around that 29, 30 years of age.
That's remarkable. Kathy, thank you very much for talking to EcoMarines today. I just would like to ask you if you would be able to leave a message to our young ambassadors, EcoMarines ambassadors, from all schools across Queensland.
Sure. So yeah, I would encourage all students to get out into the great outdoors. Try to do the best that you can. Use lots of reusables. Yeah, and just try to only leave footprints and yeah, have a limited low effect.